They got some evil intentions. We cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. If we did all this that I'm talking about your data centers, isn't that important? When they start blowing away communities one by one, we cannot let them ever even think about having a nuclear weapon, and that's exactly what's happening. They'll never have a nuclear weapon.
Well, President Trump doubling down on the threat against Iran, posting on Truth Social that Iran will face major military punishment after the Houthis in Yemen claimed they targeted 2 Saudi oil tankers rocketing up oil. The president is also reportedly considering a major escalation against Iran, saying, quote, I am considering a massive attack bigger than ever before. I'm close to making a decision. We are all set for it. Here to discuss is retired 4-star general, Fox News senior strategic analyst, and chairman of the Institute for Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, what does a ramping up and massive action look like to you?
Well, certainly the path that we're on is pretty clear. Do we go back and do more negotiations with these folks? Or do we actually face reality in terms of the fact that what we have seen through negotiations, remember, negotiations actually began after we went to a ceasefire on April the 7th. Negotiations kicked in pretty much the next day. And for weeks after that, we tried to work a deal. And we actually did get a deal. And the president of Iran signed it, and the president of the United States signed it. And that in itself was an accomplishment that hasn't been done before, because in that deal there was only one agreement. All the tough issues were kicked down the road for 60 or more days, and it was open the Straits of Hormuz. And what happened? We removed our blockade, and what did they do? They refused to give up their control of the Straits and influence of it, and actually went so far as to fire on ships who were not obeying their orders. What they expected out of that was negotiation team to come back and huddle again to work out future compromises, etc. But what did they get? They miscalculated once again. President Trump was not going to stand for that. It was a violation of the deal that he signed. He recognizes full up what he's dealing with here. He obviously always suspected what he's dealing with, a regime that's been in existence now with different players, but the same philosophy, the same ideology, the same commitment, the same barbaric behavior that we've been dealing with for 47 years. And he went back to combat operations to certainly open the straits forcibly, given the fact that they were not going to willingly cooperate. So here's the choice in front of us. As we speak right now, the Iranians are talking about negotiating again. And so that choice is available to us. We can go back and negotiate and kick the can down the road and see if we can get a better deal. But I think where the president is, he sees them for what they really are. Look, this regime hasn't changed, truth be known, in 47 years. The same ideology, different people. And they've always used diplomats, Brian, as so-called moderates, reasonable, trying to get concessions out of the United States and our allies, appearing to meet the objectives that we're trying to achieve despite the hardliners that they have to deal with. That has always been a false narrative. There is only one regime now, and for the previous regime leaders as well. They always used so-called moderate, reasonable negotiators. That's the reality of what we're dealing with here today. So the choice going forward is, do we fix this regime and shut down their behavior once and for all, go back to major combat operations? That is a much better choice. If we continue with negotiations, they've already demonstrated, even if we get a deal, they will not comply with it. What would that mean? That would mean strategic failure. People are not going to remember 5 years from now that we had to pay higher gas prices, and I'm not minimizing the impact that has on families and working class families who are meeting pay bills every month. It has an impact on them. But what they will remember is a regime that has recovered, that has rebuilt itself, that is a predator in the region again, and yes, killing Americans and our allies and partners and the Israelis once again. They will remember that. And that is something we can avoid right now. And I'm absolutely convinced the president is not going to go down that path. He's going to go down the path to fix the behavior of this regime forcibly once and for all. And listen, I credit Senator Scheer that you played his statement. People should go read that statement that he made today. It has moral clarity in it that you rarely see. It reminds me of some of the speeches that Lindsey Graham has made and John McCain has made. And people should read it and understand what's in that speech and why we're doing what we need to do here against this regime. One president, 47 years, has stood up to this regime, and that's President Donald Trump. And we're on a pathway to fix this problem once and for all.
General, I think one of the themes is, I know you know this isn't a war of choice. This is a president that chose to fight back against a country that declared war on us almost 50 years ago and has killed countless Americans in the most horrific way possible, and many of which in their custody have been tortured to death. And no one talks about it. They want to play politics with war in a way I never thought possible. Real quick, on what you're saying, escalation, would it include the Israelis, and would it also include as a target the Houthis?
Look, we can handle the Houthis. We don't need to make this a bigger problem than what it really is. We shut these guys down once before. The reason why they haven't really got into this in any consequential way is because they know they could lose everything. That's why they're just trying to focus on Saudi Arabia so that the United States does not come down on top of them. That's what their concern is here. But the real issue is Iran, and that's the focus here. And yes, we go back to major combat operations. The Israelis will be a part of that full throttle. They're at full magazine depth, and so is the United States.
Okay.
Yes, and as you indicated earlier, it would likely be a massive operation, even more powerful than what we began on February the 28th.
Yeah, and you mentioned you suck it up on gas prices, and also America likes to win. They want to see success. General Jack Keane, thanks so much. And if you want to keep up with everything, the Institute of Study of War is all of it. Always great, General. Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.